Hobby farms and gentleman ranches, they're common requests from Tulsa area home buyers. Did you know in the Tulsa area there are 448 properties that are between 5 and 20 acres that have a house on them? They start as low as $26,000. Now, considering a property that you would want to keep some animals on would require a lot of extra work to make sure you're getting the right one. Our expert here to tell us what you might want to consider, Madalyn. She has her own horse and understands what you might want to consider if you're going to take care of it every day. What would you look for in real estate?
Well, you need to have at least 1 acre per horse, and you've got to have a good water supply, which is like you can have a water pump that comes out of the ground to keep it from freezing, like dragging a hose all the way out to the pasture.
Yeah, your house would have water, but your barn would need water too. That'd be a lot of work if you had to do that every single day, especially in the winter.
And you can get a creek or a pond too, because they don't mind drinking out of that. It doesn't bother them. And you can have a trough that you can just regularly fill, and you can have one in each pasture if you've got a few pastures, or you can just put them on every other corner if you've got a really big pasture. And
fencing. What about fencing? Because you're talking about pastures. You don't want to just let them out to pasture and then not have anything to keep them in.
Yeah, well, if you want to fence, I wouldn't recommend barbed wire fence, because the barbed wire fence, if you've got a stubborn animal that really wants to get to the food on the other side, it can really hurt the animal. Like,
and you're talking specifically about horses.
Yeah, and cows sometimes cows do it too. So.
And fencing can be very expensive. I mean, this is what we talked about this property. I said there's one that's available right now that you could buy for $26,000. Would you expect that to have much fencing? Probably not. So you can spend a lot of money making these hobby ranches what you need them to be. Barns. Let's talk about barns. Now, what do you have to have if you wanted to have a horse, for example?
Well, you could at least need a loafing shed to keep them from, like, to shelter them from the rain, water, the wind, and
especially in the winter, the cold wind. But now, a loafing shed isn't the same as a barn.
And the barn would be like this, and have stalls and everything. Now, you can have a loafing shed that has stalls
in it.
But it's not like stalls. It's kind of just like a separator to keep them from, like, biting at each other if you've got a dominant horse. But you can put them facing the way that the wind usually isn't blowing. Like, if the wind is coming from that way, you'll want to keep it that way, or the back that way. And you can also install their feed bowls if you don't want to have to keep it out where in, like, all the weather to ruin their feed if they're outside.
Well, and these are important. You also mentioned pasture, a place for them to graze, so that could cut down on your costs of having to bring in hay to feed your animals.
Yeah, if you've got a place where there's hay growing in your pasture, if you don't want to keep up with it for years, I wouldn't recommend it, because if you don't want to go out and take care of it and give it the nutrients it needs, and then cut it, I wouldn't get it, because if you do, it's a real pain to get rid of if you don't want to keep it. So.
Well, that is exceptional advice, and coming from somebody who takes care of a horse every day, very helpful for someone else who may be shopping for a hobby ranch. Thank you, Madalyn. And where'd you get so cute for a country girl?
Dad.
From your mom. You're watching The Future of Real Estate. I'm Darryl Baskin. Homebuyers shopping for a home, do yourself a favor. Get a good, qualified buyer specialist, someone who understands your needs as a home buyer and does more than just show you houses, but helps you plan with negotiations, writing your contracts, home inspections, and getting you to the closing table. In the end, your purchase is where you make your most money. So get good representation. If you don't have one, call us at the Baskin Real Estate Specialist, 258-2600.